Welcome. My name is Kara Webb. I'm the Western Regional Manager here at Hartmann&Forbes. And on behalf of our entire Hartmann&Forbes team, we thank you for joining us here on Zoom for this latest installment in our Behind the Weave series. I have the pleasure of introducing Sophie Donelson as our guest moderator for today's Behind the Weave conversation. Sophie's work as a speaker, strategist, and author celebrates the connection between people and their homes. A journalist by training, Sophie speaks and writes about how interior design choices affect our well-being. To highlight just a few of her accomplishments, Sophie has appeared as a guest expert on The Today Show and Good Morning America. She has held editorial roles at House Beautiful, Elle Decor, and Martha Stewart's Blueprint magazines, and has written for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Sophie's book, Style Secrets: What Every Room Needs, is an international bestseller. She's a Boston native and longtime New Yorker who now lives with her husband and family in Montreal, where she's joining us from today. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Sophie.
Kara, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be asked to do this. Can I bring Max on? Max, you want to pop on up while I introduce you so that you can cringe introduction? How are you?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. I just have the pleasure of introducing you. I guess I kind of want to read it just formally as is, but I might gloss over a little bit. But I like the first line a lot. Recognized as a design change maker, Max Humphrey is a Portland, Oregon-based interior designer and product designer. Add that to your list. So I did know this about you, that you worked in like TV and film production, and of course that you have a great punk rock background and were a legitimate touring musician with a real contract, a real major record label, the whole shebang. And it was during that era that you came to design, which we'll touch on in a couple of minutes, because boy, that's really something. Mm-hmm. And we met when I was editing House Beautiful magazine, and you were named there one of our next wave designers. What year? 2017, maybe?
2017, yeah.
And you've also been named one of Country Living's 100 most creative people. You've got this going on for you.
Hey.
Your book came out earlier this year, right? At the beginning of the year?
Yeah, that's in April. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And yeah, got a firm, got a beautiful line of window coverings. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So we're going to get to the product, which is really exciting, but why don't you give us a snapshot of what your firm looks like right now? Like, where are you based? How many people are there? How do you sort of like delegate the work? Just real quick, give us a little snapshot.
It will be real quick. I have no employees. I work out of my kitchen. This Zoom background is my breakfast table background as well. So I keep kind of a low, I don't know. I'm not good at delegating. So you asked how I delegate, and the answer is I don't. And I recognize that. So, and my sort of design New Year's resolution every year is do not grow. I've seen so many kind of designer colleagues like staff up, and I'm still sort of figuring my career out, and it keeps changing. And I've been doing all this product design stuff lately, and so my focus right now has been on that. So not having like a team of yapping design assistants to deal with, it's been sort of a good thing. So one day I'll hire 40 people, but right now it's just me.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I actually just got off the phone with a very accomplished, designer and oft published, who same deal, doesn't even, she has a bookkeeper that's freelance. And other than that, not even an assistant. So she's really answering her own stuff. But
yeah,
why do you?
I read that Mario Boada never had assistants either. Did you hear that? And
never had Instagram.
Right. Was it? I think it was him. Yeah. And just, when you call the firm, that's who you get. And I've always sort of wanted to be like, when clients hire me, they're hiring me, and not I meet them once and I go away. So
I'm 90% sure that Mario Boada would have had like a pretend British assistant.
Right.
I was like, hello,
right.
Right. like a tough broad.
I mean, I have burner email addresses that are like admin@maxhumphrey.com, you know, that I use, or accounts payable, to like beg for money, but
invented a personal assistant for myself in
right.
addition to
Yeah.
what I do have. You can decide which one you think it is. Maybe.
Yeah. Totally.
Maybe an email from George. Maybe you get one from Nancy. Which one is
Right.
real?
Right. I'll never know.
So, okay. And then Portland, Oregon, which is
Portland, Oregon.
Time now, but you're not from there.
No, I'm from New Hampshire. I went to school in Boston, and I moved to LA in 2001. And I was in LA for almost 15 years and moved to Portland 5 or 6 years ago. So
How's it
yeah, been great. It was Portland and the Oregon and the Pacific Northwest sort of has a visual connection to where I grew up in New England.
Yeah,
and so it looks a little more, when you're driving outside, like the landscape looks like what it looked like when I grew up. So so that's nice. There's no palm trees, but that's fine.
They were never meant to be there anyway, Max.
Right, exactly.
So when we were talking with the Hartmann&Forbes crew, when we were prepping for this, one of the really interesting points to skip ahead to sort of like what made me be like, oh yeah, is that your whole vibe and your ethos and a lot of your aesthetic feels very right for right now. And I want to dig into it a little bit, later, more richly through kind of like product and experience. But when you think of sort of why people hire you as a designer, in addition to your cunning wit and your handsome good looks, what else sort of like, what are they hiring? Like, what do they come to you for? Like, what's your whole thing?
I mean, it's sort of like, this is all kind of happening now in real time, because it's like when you start out your career, you don't have a huge like portfolio and you've got some stuff, but clients were coming to me at first and showing me like, magazine tear sheets and Pinterest pages from like random designers or whatever. And now they're coming to me and showing me like the inspiration for their house is stuff they plucked from my own like website. So, and at the same time, it's sort of always been like designers, there's always that thing like designers own home is one thing. And then like what they do for clients is generally kind of another thing, or like a very different version or a completely opposite thing. It's always weird when it's like some designer and they're really into like, I don't know, super minimal stuff for their clients. Then you see like the picture of their house and it's like a disaster. But designers' own homes are always like the best part of their portfolio. It's really what you want to see. And so I think now I'm sort of able to bring what I do for myself, not just the aesthetic, but also like the process of how I build my own home to clients' houses. And so my clients' projects now look like kind of more expensive versions of my own house.
What do you feel like, if we really just like want to boil it down, like what do you feel like a lay person who's familiar with your work would go into a home designed by you, and obviously expressly for that client that makes sense for that client, but what might be like a telltale sign where they'd be like, oh, I knew Max was your designer? Like, would there be something that they'd be like, he always does that, or I love the way he does that? Like, are there any signature moves that are pretty consistent in your work?
Yeah, my greatest hits.
Sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to sort of a basis in nostalgia, and I both sort of like literal stuff that you would sort of think about as your like childhood, and sort of like grown up versions of summer camp, but translated into like a modern family home. So I think a little bit of that sort of grown up summer camp, I guess, is what I would say. There's touches, there's, I think there's pattern, there's color. I would say nostalgia is what I think maybe they'll say, oh, this whole vibe reminds me of something from when I was a kid, or what my parents were into, but it doesn't look old and timey. It looks current. So I guess that's the answer.
Yeah. And is that, I mean, to me, that also immediately reads as sort of like emotional decorating, where you have a visceral reaction to something because there's like a familiarity or a warmth to it, and you vibe with it kind of based on a feeling versus being like, I love bandana print. Like it's not an obvious, just sort of like, here's the thing. It really goes into a layer deep of like, what does that signify? Or like, what kind of house would have that? Can you
Yeah,
tell me, you land, I guess, when did you land on that? Or how can you describe how you do that?
I mean, it was always there, you know, because it was really, it's all about sort of like recreating my childhood home now, I think, in my house and in my clients' houses. So it is sort of this therapy, design as therapy, design as autobiography. I landed on it. I don't know. It took some confidence to be like, oh, this people actually want me to decorate their houses like I would, you know, my own, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It took up, you know, I was a designer in LA for 7 or 8 or 9 years before I moved to Portland. And I think moving to Portland really sort of brought it out because I felt like I was sort of more home, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of like reaching back, and it's hard to explain sometimes because it's so obvious to me. It's like sometimes when I show a client something, they're like, okay, well, why should I use this? Or like, why this print? And it's like, what do you mean? You know, there's no why. It's just like, my gut is telling me to do this. And it's because that's what I'm familiar with and was in the sort of like in my blood, you know?
I love that idea sort of as a product partner, I guess. Yeah. Do you feel like Hartman and Forbes came to you knowing that, like liking that aspect of it, or why did that initial kind of connection work? Because it's so easy to see. I don't know. I love knowing your ethos and then seeing it through this new product. It's really curious. Like it's evolved and it's very sophisticated. But I think if you told me the pairing of you two, or I'd be like, wow, how is that going to manifest? And now that I see it, I'm like, yes, this is sort of so obvious and sort of so basic in its purity.
Right. I didn't know either. Like it's my first sort of real collaboration like this, you know? So I knew, I mean, I had a meeting like a businessy meeting once with like a consultant, and I had to show them my portfolio, and I showed them like stuff that I thought they wanted to see.
Right.
And at the very end of the portfolio was like the good stuff that I was really proud of, that was like weirder or super personal. And they were like, get rid of all the stuff at the front. It's low hanging fruit. We really want to, you know, you're here because of your stuff here at the end. And so I did want to bring, I wanted to bring something new to the table that Hartman didn't already do, you know, and I want to do something that was very instantly recognizable as me. But it's a high-end product.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to like worry about it not being executed the right way. You know what I mean? And it like truly like the first round of samples are all so much better than I expected, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, because I didn't know, I'm so visual that I can look at a 2D rendering and be like, okay, you know, but then when the actual samples come through and I see the textures and all that, it's like, yeah, it's super max, but it's also super elevated Hartman and Forbes.
Yeah, it's intense. I kind of feel like you I don't know, passed the bar on the first try. Like it's, I mean, things I don't hear from interior designers on their first collaboration was like, yeah, the first samples were way better than I expected. It's like, no.
Like what we're seeing on the screen is like, there was a little bit of color tweaking, all of the scale we got right. And that was something that was really important. But really beyond a couple color tweaks, what you see in the collection is what I saw the first samples that we got back from the mill.
Wow. So how did something like this start? Was it a conversation? Was there like a quiz or a test? Did you have to pass in sort of a portfolio to the company to sort of say what you would do? Like I remember interviewing for House Beautiful, and I don't know if I can share this, but too late. I think it started with like, show us your Pinterest boards, show us Pinterest boards that like point away toward like the future of decorating, or there was a little bit more guidance than that. But in short, it was like, show us you have good taste, or show us that your taste is going to work for our brand.
Right.
And there were many other quizzes after that, but that was the entry, was just like, let's just make sure this girl's got taste.
No, I think they did their homework way ahead of time, Hartman and Forbes, and Rebecca in particular, the product development manager over there. I think they really knew my whole story and knew my sort of connection to the design industry and my and everything. And it was really just an email. Hey, do you want to collaborate? You know, I was a fan of the brand already. And I think they also like completely got my sensibility, Rebecca in particular, when I brought my first round of sort of inspiration to the table. And it was like, I'm sure they were like, ooh, what is he gonna show up with, you know? And but no, it was just a quick email. Let's have a chat. Have you ever thought about collaborating with with a brand like this? And it just went from there. It was easy, and not sort of how you like think it's going to work. Like, just brands are going to reach out to you rather than like pitch or beg or whatever, bribe them. But I mean, I think it was like really the perfect partnership. Their offices are also like 10 minutes from my house, so which we found out kind of after the fact. So I think they really wanted somebody local that represented the Pacific Northwest. So yeah,
it's cool. And you were on the heels of Michael S. Smith. How was that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's almost easier in a way, right? You know, like I have a completely different sensibility, so yeah. But he was sort of ringing in my ear a little bit, like.
And that collection's beautiful. It's
right.
amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, I hope when you look at these collections together, it's like you can use these in the same house. It's not like.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I think it's kind of amazing. It's just that there's enough of a brand product point of view in like the craftsmanship, you know, like of the materials that, yeah, the DNA exists there, right? But it's just like, this is with this father, and then this is with my other baby daddy. You know?
Right, totally. But Michael Smith is hip, you know, so
and
so it's not like so and now, I mean, of course, I use all my patterns in my own house, you know, my patterns, but I think a designer now will be getting samples from Hartmann&Forbes and mixing and matching, and taking one from me and a couple from the sort of the standard Hartmann line and one from the Michael Smith collection, and using them all together, which is cool.
That's great. It was, like I think about how like designers know what designers need, or more so, designers know what clients need. That's one of the reasons that you know, manufacturers and brands bring on a guest designer, right? Not just infuse a little fresh blood or make that collaboration, but because you're out on the street, right? Like, see what kind of homes are being designed, and like I think one of the interesting things, and this is a great picture to illustrate that, is that, I mean, what is it's in my notes, like how wide they can go, because they're actually loomed for, right? They're loomed.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you're not like cutting and sewing fabric. Like they're actually like, oh, your window's 120 inches wide. Like that will be the size, you know?
Right. They're woven to size, and the traditional loom, shades off the traditional loom can be woven up to 180 inches wide with no seams, which is bonkers.
Crazy.
And the patterns on the jacquard loom can go up to 100 inches wide, which is already super long. But this is all great. This comes up a lot now, because especially in newer homes with like banks of windows, and it's like, now how do I treat these, you know? I also sort of, going into it, I really wanted usable patterns that designers that maybe recognized my sensibility, but didn't have that same sort of aesthetic, could use and interpret in their own way. And so the scale of them was important. The sort of the colorways were designed in a way to be usable for other designers. I didn't want this to be just like this quirky collection that people think is cool, but nobody can use. Because
we've all seen what that looks like.
Right. And it's great if you're doing like an art project or something, but yeah, I wanted designers to be able to be like, I've never seen this before, and now it's, you know, a woven grass gingham doesn't exist. So
woven grass gingham. Gosh.
Yeah. So these are all woven grasses, you know, they're natural fibers. So you've seen kind of print fabric versions of some of these patterns, but you've never seen a woven grass version.
Were you kind of like, whoa, when you got the samples back?
Like,
like seeing it executed so beautifully. Like the first time I saw samples of these, I was like, oh, like these are nice.
I mean, everything about it was like a whoa. and I was been spoiled on this collaboration, I think, just because everything clicked so easily. And I've worked on, all kinds of different projects where it's difficult and we're not getting it right. And either it's a design project for the client and I'm missing the mark, or it's a custom piece of whatever that I'm having designed. And
like this photo like so drives home how like handmade this is. It's
right. Yeah. But for me though, with anything, it's that my first idea is always my best one.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then I move on, because it's not about like tweaking. It's like you get it right the first time or you move on. That's like an SAT test thing. Don't they say like statistically, like your first impression?
Yeah. Don't you? I mean, God, Max and I went to the same college, which I'm sure you saw on Instagram, that we're very proud of this. Also being that we didn't know each other, didn't even know this was a thing. I don't even think we needed SAT scores to get into Emerson College in Boston, although, because it specialized in creative people that maybe didn't know about places to go.
I think I made a mixtape for my application.
God. Amazing. I definitely wrote an obnoxious personal essay from the point of view of a privileged white girl. You can't even get away with that anymore, by the way.
No, I know.
Totally can't. We're so lucky we went to college when we did, Max. God.
I know, it's true. I wouldn't have gotten in now, but
anyway, we were talking about designers and using it. So what was SATs was you're supposed to go through the whole thing and quickly do what you know, right? And then you go back and are like, but at least you've triaged, right?
Right.
So was some of your first ideas, were they winners?
There's no B-sides. Everything you see, part of it was going in knowing what the amount of the number of patterns we were going to do. So it was limited to begin with.
Yeah.
I didn't come up with 75 ideas and edit down. I did, but it was all before I got to the table.
On a wall.
Yeah, no, I don't really work like that. And it was because it.
We say now. Right.
It's also knowing that, these are hand woven, so it's not like we could just whip up a million samples, also, I've had my whole career to think about this, it's my first album. So I've had my whole, career to think about these. And it was just, boom, here's the 4 or 5 patterns I want to do. And then it was just a question of kind of tweaking those. There wasn't a lot of filler or extra or stuff that we narrowed down. I mean, I could pull together my first sort of PDF and there was maybe 1 or 2 ideas that didn't make it, but it wasn't, it was really what you're seeing is sort of what we came to, what we started with.
I love that. You gave a legendary interview to Caitlin Peterson at Business of Home on her podcast.
Was it? Is it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's worth looking up, everybody. But it really did underscore your, I would say, unorthodox way of working, even if that's just the choice to be a solo kind of doer and work intimately with the client and not have a lot of intermediaries there. And 2, sometimes your contrarian attitude of here are my ideas. If you don't like them, maybe you should go elsewhere. And I'm good with that. And hopefully you're good with that too. And that you're at peace with, now you're not trying to make enemies, but you're also here's what I can do. And here's how I can help. And here's how I can make this happen. And if that works for you, you're a good fit. Right.
Right.
I feel like you have, you have a point of view and and that's why people come to you. Right. So
right.
Was there anything you were contrarian about at all? Was there any way you wanted to push something in terms of product or even marketing or anything where Hartmann&Forbes was we're going to need you to come back down to earth, Max, and do it this way? Or was there any place where you felt like you were pushing? And I mean this in a sweet way. I mean, these are and they're ultimately a collaboration can be a compromise. You hope it's the best of both worlds for both parties, but there's a lot to sort out.
Yeah, I mean, it was truly collaborative. So I think maybe at first when we were talking about the number of patterns, I was maybe okay, I want 75 SKUs and every colorway, you know, and that was a little brought down to earth, but actually that's sort of a creatively kind of a good thing for me to be edited down in terms of, you know, no, other than that, the only sort of revision we made really is when we got our first round of samples and had them all up on the board. I don't think the colors really represented what I wanted, like the whole collection to look like at first glance. So there was some revision, but no, I mean, I wasn't like demanding like limo service to and from the offices.
That would be
now,
like
I mean,
passenger on a bike in Portland, right? You would
right.
get one of those little carriages behind.
Yeah. I mean, it's my first collaboration, so I'm going to be a diva now going forward. Especially knowing how this has been successful so far. So I feel like now I have a leg to stand on.
They'll be like, well, at Hartman, and they'll be like,
right.
Well, at Hartman.
Yeah. Turn on the money hose. But no, I mean, it was really, I mean, I've dealt with other brands where it hasn't gone this smoothly. It was just, I think, a good fit, and we really clicked. And
much like with clients, right? I mean, isn't that the same
yeah.
dance?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and some clients and I don't click, and it's fine too, you know. I think we would have been able to tell, Hartman and I would have been able to tell after that first meeting if this was gonna be fun or not. And it was just instantly like, yep.
I totally get that. Have you used these yet?
I have. I think I mean, I use them in my house. The asset photography, you know, we shot at my house, and so I got to put them in my house, which is cool because it's like sort of the first time I get to have the same stuff that I order for clients, you know, because I always get like.
How messy is that part of your room right now? Can you turn me around?
That's it.
You're the worst.
It's not too bad.
But this image right here, Max, look.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Yeah, that's yours, right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, so I got to use them in my house, which is cool because I get to like really live with them, and you know. But I mean, I have two big projects that I ordered sort of whole house for, and I was a little like anxious at first to sort of present these ideas to clients because it's not that it's like double dipping, but like that's another sort of form of confidence. I'm sure Michael Smith doesn't have a problem, or Kelly Wearstler, or whoever, that's like, yeah, you hire me and we're using all my stuff, obviously. But for me, it was like, okay, guys, I want to show you this new cool collaboration. And clients, of course, were like, yeah, this is awesome. We want these. That's why we hired you. Yes. But yeah, so two big projects that'll be installing.
I wouldn't have made these unless one, I thought they were like missing from the market, and two, they were the best thing.
Right, exactly. And so that's why these exist, is because they weren't out there already. So now I get to use them, and go. Now it feels a little easier now presenting them. But at first it was like, I felt a little like, oh, this is I've never gotten to do this before, you know. It wasn't a hard sell, but it was a little nerve-wracking at first.
Totally. How much so the book, can we just talk about how it's sort of broken up into chapters or ideas that highlight kind of like a concept, like
design element is
a design element, if you will.
That's what we say.
Or cross stitch or botanicals, and then illustrates it both with like really pretty detail shots, but also kind of like your work in situ. But it's a really brilliant way to do what is ultimately a monograph for you, and you'll have other books like that. But you're also presenting like your pattern book, right? Like your pattern book for like, here are the elements that make a Max design, but also if you want to take some of these for yourself, here's how you might incorporate them.
Mm-hmm.
As an aficionado and writer of coffee table books, I have a lot of opinions on how bad most of them are. And yours is really good, really, just because it without being instructive, it's really specific about what you're seeing and why it works. Was that an obvious when you started with also your end page? Oh, I deserve better than this. Like, what the F is this, Max?
I mean,
can I get something more personal here?
You gotta, you know what somebody told me recently? This was Ed. They told me that
papers are so
you're
great.
supposed to. So, but the next page, like the first page with like the name on it, that one, somebody told me that that's where you're actually supposed to sign, because that's what like book collectors then can resell the book for more money if the autograph is on the page with their name. The fact that I signed mine on like a blank page means it's worthless. So
it's clearly worthless. Yeah.
clearly.
That was evident.
Yeah.
I also signed on this page, but by design, because I had like hot pink end papers, because in 2017, that was all the rage.
Right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't regret it. I feel fine about that.
I feel fine too. If people are going to resell my book on eBay, you know, go for it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't go to school for interior design. So I learned interior design by squatting at Barnes and Noble and reading at the Grove in LA and reading design books like all day long. So I have such a, like a, I don't know, I like honor them really as sort of ways to teach. So I had a lot of opinions too about it. And I sort of, it's funny now, because looking back when I started my book, I was like looking back at some of my early favorites, and it's like, these are kind of bad. These are like really ghostwritery and like.
Hand though, are there any books that either because it's a great book or because the style you enjoy? Is there anything that remains sort of
My favorite?
Yeah, or just frequently referenced. Yeah.
The Billy Baldwin books do. Probably they were sort of the first that I picked up on that like really blew my mind. But yeah, I mean, I wanted my book to be not organized by project. Yeah. Like here's the Cannon Beach project, 10 pages of start to finish entry, you know, moving through it. Just like, I don't know, we've seen that, and I don't really consume inspiration that way anyway. I didn't want it to be like a textbook, you know, it's like a fun picture book. Yeah, I mean, it was like, I did think about what I didn't want to do, you know? Yeah, but yeah, I also wanted to really be accessible, I think is the other thing. Yeah. To not just like potential clients. A lot of designers write design books to like get new clients or whatever. And I wanted to do that, but also be accessible to like somebody that was never going to hire me, you know, but just likes this cool design and can be like, oh, this is a cool idea and I can do this myself, you know.
2 quick questions, and then we're going to take some questions from our fans, friends in the audience.
Okay.
One is like the word Americana. When did you decide to embrace that, and how much did you think about it?
I keep like, I've been asked this before and I don't remember the exact, it like came to me in one of those like question you asked earlier about like describing your style. It just sort of like, it just sort of hit, because people like design writers and bloggers and whatever, and even before in like the musician days, like you're always trying to get categorized in like a little 2-word, it sounds like, you know, alt country or
soundbite.
Yeah. So and that stuff, it's handy, you know, like I like those. I just couldn't really like come up with mine. And I think it was maybe a writer or somebody like said modern Americana. It was together. It wasn't just like, oh, Americana, and then I had to come up with the modern. It came to me. And it clicked and it made sense. And it seemed to be like, I like terms like that where you can be like, oh yeah, I can picture that. I don't even know what this guy's style is, but I can picture what that is, you know. But it was actually really freeing having that sort of label, you know, because then I didn't have to think about it anymore. And, you know, yeah.
I heard a person recently describe herself as like a person of interest, which is not a way you can describe yourself, but you could feasibly meet somebody at a party and be like, that woman was so like cool. Like, what's her story? Or like, what's she do? And you're like, oh, she's just a person of interest. Like, don't limit her by her career or like what her.
That sounds like a criminal. Like, isn't a person of interest like, that's what they say if somebody's like under indictment or like hasn't been arrested, but they're like.
No, you're right. But I like that sort of like, there's a freeing, I don't know, that's not saying.
Right. You know what's funny is when I was in when I was in high school, I had a job at a convenience store stocking. They had like an ice cream stand, and it was attached to a convenience store. And I worked either in the ice cream store in the summer or in the convenience store. And they made me business cards that said cooler engineer / frozen dairy specialist. And it was like my little, like I stocked the Snapple bottles in the cooler, or I made, soft serve, but yeah, frozen dairy specialist. So I love that stuff too.
That's my new business card moniker. And last question before we get to, questions with our friends. Paint me a picture of like a modern Americana moment before you knew it was a modern Americana. Like take me back to summer camp, or to your idea of summer camp, or visiting a friend's cottage, or a lake moment. Like tell me like a childhood something that you actually kind of can sometimes conjure up in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff, like, it's funny because this stuff was so in my house my whole childhood and life, and I literally never noticed it. Just because I wasn't that kid. I wasn't like, oh, I want to be an interior designer when I grow up, when I was 10. And now it's like I look at like old photos, and it's like my parents had matching blue plaid sofas, red and black buffalo check, drapery in the same room, ticking stripe quilts. And so it was all there, but literally it was just like so close that I couldn't see it, I think. And it's only now, my mom is like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you didn't invent this. Like, your room was wallpapered. You had quilts all over, so I think sometimes it's like, I don't know, maybe it's because I was just like a little dude that cared more about video games or something. But the aha moment really came later, that it's always been here,
Did it, like thinking back to your family house, is it as good as you remember? Are they still in the same house?
No. And no, no, the answer is no to both questions. I think if I went back, it was in the most like wonderful place, kind of in the woods, but it wasn't like this old fancy New England house. It was just, my parents would go to junk stores and bring stuff home, or whatever. So I think maybe some of it is good. But I have such I've definitely romanticized it in my head and in the way I talk about it now. I was desperate to leave growing up. I was like, I want to go to the city and get away from this country nonsense, but now it's like, just send me back. Yeah.
A question for you. What would you design next? Is there anything in terms of a collab that you would just like love to get your hands on? Is there any dream collab for you?
I've a lot of sort of commercially, like in interior, not product, but in interior design, I have a lot of commercial stuff that's coming my way. Oregon wine country is sort of happening, and there's some projects related to that. But I don't drink wine. And so I sort of don't care. Like, they're fun projects, but like I'm really into coffee, and no one's asked me to design a coffee shop yet. So I would love to design a coffee shop, just because it would be, again, a place like I could design where I would want to go.
Wine are going to be enjoying themselves anyway. So
right.
Your idea of designing a place that even people who are not drinking wine could enjoy is a really cool
and that's idea. Totally the mindset, because it's not like they can drink their way through this lame decor, so, but yeah, coffee shop. I'm putting that out into the world.
Love that. A writer named Ruta asks, can you tell us exactly what are the textiles or the weaves or the materials that are in your line? You started to mention it earlier.
It's rammy, so it's woven grass, and it's hand woven on a loom, either a traditional loom or a jacquard loom, which is when they punch the pattern into the little cards like olden timey computers.
Really
the image you're looking
cursor to like data, right? It's fascinating.
Oh yeah, totally. It's literally and it's a French dude, Mr. Jacquard, I think, who invented that technique, and it was the precursor to computers. But in order, the pattern we're looking at now, the cross pattern, this was woven on a jacquard loom, and it gives you greater control over pattern. And a couple of the patterns in my collection were the first time Hartmann was able to use a jacquard loom. And it was because I came to the table with these pattern ideas, and they said, yes, we can do this. We have to use our jacquard loom, and it's the first time we've ever done it. So it's woven grasses, hand loomed. That's what they're made of.
One question about the product and then one about publishing. Libby asks you to repeat the maximum width and height again of a grass weave or a Roman shade. Very technical. We might need to
love
call
it.
Big guns for this, but do you know offhand?
The jacquard loom widths are 100 inches wide, and the traditional loom widths are 180 inches wide. I don't know the maximum length. Our friends at Hartmann can answer that. I imagine they could go on forever, but
turns and whatever. But yeah,
like I don't know if you'd want a building sized, shade, but yeah, our friends at Hartmann can answer the overall length, but yeah, 100 to 180.
As a designer, question: how much do you concentrate on social media versus publishing in more traditional venues? I'm guessing they're asking.
Good question. I love traditional.
I would add to that, like digital print. Are you a purist?
Yeah.
Obviously, it helped you at the beginning of your career, but gosh, a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, I mean, I still love a print feature. So I pitch to print all the time. And it's sort of nice now because I think at the beginning you needed like a full house tour to be able to get published. And now it's like, oh, we're doing a feature on kitchens. Do you have a kitchen? So I pitch all the time, and I get pitched to, or, editors reach out. Do you have anything? Constantly. I like a lot of times it's motivation for me to finish a project, because a lot of times for a client, I'll get them 95% of the way there. And that little 5% maybe never happens. But if I'm shooting it for a print feature, then I'm really coming in with like that last, you read about like designers that like go through on install day and light candles and have the flowers, like that little extra 5% that you see in like magazine styling. Like I don't normally do, but if I'm shooting it, then I do it. And so the big motivation for me is to finish the job. And then, it also sort of gives me license then after it's been published to post about it on social. So a lot of times I'll wait for a print opportunity or a digital opportunity, publish it, and then post about it. So
yeah, that's true. I think that culture of like HGTV, TLC show watching of like the reveal and like install day.
Yeah.
Hear about it more and more, and it's not with every type of designer, but I feel like actually even the clients are becoming accustomed to wanting some sort of like moment where it's all real, right? Because as a project, it's so much like punch list stuff, right? Like it just sort of like, yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, a quick words of advice for designers out there that are looking to present themselves as being able parties to do a collab. I think that what you mentioned about your portfolio, about bringing to the front of it just like the core of who you are, what makes you different. I thought that was a really kind of salient, detail, and that the rest of the beautiful work or the published work, it's great and include it, but really, bring your most, original self to the front, right?
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of times you see designers with product collaborations, and they have a very recognizable style. So I guess that's the key. But also you need relationships with these brands. Like use them, like take advantage of customization, because that's one way to really like show a brand that you're creative. Hartmann&Forbes, everything is customizable. People can customize my patterns. If you wanted this one you're looking at in purple, hypothetically they could do it, which is great. And so there's a lot of companies, especially to the trade, that offer custom capabilities. And so and the brands seem very excited to, show off that capability.
It's such
So-
a great advice, because it's like, it's an immediately like a portfolio of what they're capable of, right? Like, I love that.
Yeah. So brands like it, and designers can show off, can I get this in a larger scale, or can I change the colors, or can I, add a border or whatever. So that's, I think a lot of probably brand collaborations happen that way. Designer was already in their custom world. And so it was like, this is great. We should roll this out,
One more quick one, and then we're going to wrap it up. Any tips for somebody who's downsizing? What's the best way to make like a textile shine or be kind of like an important moment in a smaller home?
Ooh, I mean, I have a storage unit full of like quilts, so I guess get a storage unit.
So definitely ask Max about downsizing.
Yeah, don't ask Max about downsizing. I guess it's for me, it's don't be too precious about your stuff. It's just stuff, and pay it forward, give it away, give it to a friend, sell it. And also for me, it's like my newest thing is always my favorite, when it comes to especially like vintage or textiles or whatever. But it goes in the best spot in the house at first, and then it kind of weaves its way like to the guest room or the office or whatever. But with textiles, they can be used in interesting ways. I cut up stuff and have pillows made all the time. I can't fit a whole blanket, yeah, I'm not the guy to ask about downsizing or like editing or.
No, and textiles I think are amazing. Yeah, because they pack easily, they store flawlessly, they last
Right.
used. I mean, it's like pretty
But they
special.
can be so many different things. It can be a wall covering, you can frame textiles. I frame stuff all the time. Or
I love that. Well, this has been so interesting. I love this. I have to share with the audience our cute anecdote of me refinding you when I was at House Beautiful before you did Next Wave, which was Max actually emailed me the forward of the email, but I had like heard about you or saw your work or saw you on Instagram. And then I read that you went to the same college as me. And then I think I read that we were like contemporaries. We're like the same age.
I'm older, so just so everybody knows.
By like a year, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think my email, what did we just say? The email said it was like, the subject.
Do I know you?
Should I? It was, do I know you? Should I?
Yeah. Which is a funny email to get from like a magazine editor in chief, and it's like.
Yeah, as emails go, that's pretty classic.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Met in LA for coffee or beer or something, who knows?
Right.
But yeah, but that was nice. It was nice to re-find you and to find you again. What a treat. And I'm so excited.
I know. Look at us now.
It's beautiful, and it's very you, and I'm so excited. Hartmann&Forbes, by the way, if you guys aren't following them on Instagram, follow them. Max's handle is Max W. Humphrey, but Hartmann has a beautiful account and gorgeous stuff. You can follow me too, Sophie Dow, D-O-W. Follow the whole bunch of us. So thanks, friend.
Thanks, friend. See you soon.
Everybody for joining us. Much appreciated.
Bye.
Bye, guys.